My name is Scarlett. My one and only skill is drawing. I often received praise at school, and by the time I graduated, I dreamed of having a career related to art. Just as I wished, I found a job at a design office. Recipe and Mary is the logo for that company ready. Here it is. What do you think? Great, let's propose this. Thank you. Sure, it was fulfilling, but I wanted to do work that benefited people more directly, like creating websites for family-run shops or designing social media logos for individuals. I wanted to do that kind of work too.
Afraid the idea isn't bad, but these projects often don't turn a profit. It's hard to get involved in such work.
When I discussed this dilemma with my boyfriend Alan, he suggested, why not try working independently? You could accept jobs while doing what you want to do. Wouldn't I have to quit the office? Then, so I quit the design office and married Alan. But married life was different from what I had imagined. Margaret, can you go shopping for dinner? Sure, I was constantly being bossed around by some mother-in-law, Margaret, cooking, laundry, cleaning. It was a whirlwind of busyness. I hardly had any time to do design work. I wonder if it wouldn't have been better if I hadn't married.
Because Margaret had started to push the care of my sick father-in-law, Daniel, onto me. I'm sorry, Scarlett. No, it's okay. You're my dad too, in a way. If you have any troubles, come talk to me.
Daniel always cared for me, so I didn't mind taking care of him. Moreover, Daniel was a skilled investor and taught me the ABCs of investing in a way I could understand. That's how you invest. This was really clear. Thank you. You have a talent, Scarlett. You should try investing yourself. But I wanted to do design work. I accidentally voiced my true feelings. Panicking, I covered my mouth. But Daniel, with a smile, said, if that's the case, start your own company. What?
If that's the case, start your own company. I'll provide the funds. Think of it as an investment in Scarlett.
But I might not be able to pay it back.
Yeah, I invest in companies with growth potential. Those not too large in market cap. Trust me, I've found several 10-baggers.
A 10-bagger, it seems, is a stock market term for stocks that have increased tenfold or are likely to. In other words, Daniel believed I had that potential. I knew Daniel was an excellent investor. Since he believed in me, I decided to believe in myself. And so I decided to start my own design office. However, starting alone had its anxieties. I approached Mary, a senior colleague at my previous company, saying, so I was hoping, Mary, that you could lend a hand.
Of course. I've been thinking about going independent too.
Thank you.
Let's give it our all. The two of us.
So Mary easily agreed to my proposal. Thus, we established a new design company with Daniel's investment.
Now I can do what I wanted.
Once we started working, things went smoother than expected. With Mary's sales skills, jobs came one after another. Expanding to individual clients also attracted success. Our company grew steadily. It's with support from young people who frequently used social media. About a year later, we managed to return all the funds Daniel had invested. Thank you so much.
This is your Mary's achievement. I just provided a little support.
I was grateful to have met Daniel, but the good times ended there. Daniel passed away soon after due to illness.
He says I'm going out, so I'll leave the rest to Scarlet. Cleaning, laundry, and don't forget shopping and dinner preparation. Get it all done, okay? Ah, yes.
Margaret completely abandoned all household chores. Indeed, what Margaret did was very little. Even so, dumping everything on me was troublesome.
Could you help out a little? I take a daughter-in-law talking like that. Just do the household work quietly.
Margaret yelled at me and left. I talked to Alan about it, but he said, You've been busy with Dad's care. Maybe it's okay to rest a bit. But don't worry, it'll go back to normal soon. Our kid caring for Daniel was a long time ago. Since Alan and I married, she hardly cared for Daniel. I was anxious about what back to normal would mean. After a while, a lawyer came to discuss Daniel's estate. It took some time, but we've settled the estate matters. What happened?
Settle. It took some time, but we've settled the estate matters.
What happened? What happened?
Half of the inheritance goes to the wife and son. Other relatives were entitled, but renounced their claims?
Really?
Margaret and Alan stood up, overjoyed, as if they didn't care about Daniel, only the money. I was bitterly frustrated. Then the lawyer, looking as annoyed as I felt, continued.
There is a condition, though.
Is a condition for the inheritance.
Yes, as instructed by the deceased during his lifetime.
The lawyer began explaining the condition Daniel had set before his death. It seems Daniel wanted to leave his estate to Margaret and Alan. He wished other relatives to renounce their inheritance as much as possible. However, Daniel's will wasn't just that. He wanted us to use the money meaningfully. Then the lawyer handed Margaret and the others Daniel's written will. When I peeked, it contained the ABCs of investment that Daniel taught me.
He wants me to invest.
No, it's me. I'm Dad's blood after all.
Margaret and Alan were adamant, not giving in to each other. Ignoring them, I opened the envelope Daniel left for me.
What's wrong, Scarlet? NTAT?
It's memories with Daniel. Memories? Yes. It's the payoff certificate I made when I returned the money he kept. Really? So I got the loan agreement back and made a payoff certificate. This is a copy of the certificate I gave him. On the back, Daniel had written words of encouragement in his handwriting.
He borrowed money from Dad.
In fact, I hadn't told Alan or Margaret about establishing my company. They didn't know I was running a business, thinking I was doing some remote work for extra money. Maybe Daniel gave me an opportunity to reveal it to them.
Actually, I set up a corporation to work. Daniel just invested in it.
His investment, but that's the same as borrowing money.
But I returned it all.
Delay.
But did Daniel do this to secretly motivate me? In any case, Daniel's words resonated with me. Meanwhile, Alan and Margaret's discussion remained unresolved.
Like the next day, while I was working in my room, Margaret came in.
I decided to start investing. Will you start without telling Alan? Margaret, will you start without telling Alan? Alan doesn't matter. I have the ABCs of investment Daniel left.
He's confidently declaring Margaret left. I was anxious but not in a position to instruct Margaret. Trust bank or securities firm. I think she went there, but will she be okay? With Daniel's inheritance, Margaret wouldn't go bankrupt immediately.
Trust bank or securities firm. I think she went there, but will she be okay? I'll discuss it with Alan when he returns.
A few hours later, Margaret returned, carefully stepping in, watching secretly. I saw Margaret store something in the closet. Securities or something, right? Then Margaret muttered while fumbling this with her mobile phone. She seems to have started investing seriously.
Securities or something, right?
I immediately discussed Margaret's situation with Alan when he returned. That's the situation? I see. Are you listening? I am. But have you heard of financial news? Financial news, that's what's you watch for investing. Alan wasn't really listening. After that, Alan kept talking only about what he wanted. About this data or that company being a good target for investment and so on. Alan, too, had misunderstood Daniel's will and was planning to start investing. This is bad.
I see.
I see.
Are you listening? I am, but have you heard of financial news? Financial news, that's what you watch for investing.
I am, but have you heard of financial news? That's what you watch for investing.
Financial news?
Oh, swiked, what's what you watch for investing?
And Alan wasn't really listening. After that, Alan kept talking only about what he wanted. About this data or that company being a good target for investment and so on. Basically, Alan, too, had misunderstood Daniel's will and was planning to start investing. This is bad. Both of them have completely misunderstood Daniel's will. It was troubling, but Margaret and Alan only cared about themselves and had no interest in each other. Moreover, they wouldn't listen to what I had to say, but I couldn't just leave things as just where you were. I kept trying to persuade Margaret and Alan whenever I could.
Margaret suddenly starting to invest is dangerous. This stock needs to be bought now. What else? Please listen to what I'm saying. There's nothing to talk about. Let go of me. Let go of me.
Margaret broke away from my grasp and left. Alan was almost the same. When he came home from work, he was always looking at his mobile phone. What are you looking at, Alan? Financial news. About investing? This is it. This is the target. I'm going big.
This is it. This is the target. I'm going big.
At first, it wasn't too bad. Margaret and Alan were investing within the limits of their pocket money. That wouldn't burden our household finances. If their investment succeeded, they could secure it. Future funds, not all bad. I was trying to convince myself that Margaret and Alan were amateurs. Just hearing Daniel's advice doesn't make them like seasoned investors. Gradually, both Margaret and Alan became grumpy and irritable at home. Then, one day Margaret came to my rooms. Scarlett, I need to talk to you.
Scarlett, I need to talk to you. What's wrong, Margaret? Could you help me out a bit?
Apparently, her investments weren't going well.
How much? Well, $500 should be enough. $500?
I was shocked, but arguing would only lead to complaints. I hoped that if she failed with this, she would give up. So I handed over $500 to Margaret. But that was a mistake. The amount Margaret demanded kept increasing every month, and after half a year she was asking for $2,000 monthly.
$3,000 is too much. You're the daughter-in-law. just give the money quietly?
$3,000 was definitely excessive. Continuing like this, my own living expenses would become unsustainable. As I hesitated, Margaret said something surprising.
You're worried about gift taxes. If that's the case, I have the perfect solution. What do you mean? If you give me money, it might be considered a gift, and you could be charged a gift tax. Even among family, giving money can incur gift tax above a certain amount. I had already given nearly $10,000. But I have a secret plan. A secret plan? If it's a loan instead of a gift, there's no problem. Instead of receiving, I'll borrow it.
That was Margaret's idea. Money transactions can be considered gifts depending on the situation, but in that case, gift tax must be paid. But if it's a loan, it's different. Even with money transactions, no gift tax is required.
But disguising it isn't good. It's not a disguise. I'm really borrowing from you, although I don't plan to pay it back.
I was conflicted about doing such a thing. Yet, Margaret went ahead with her plan.
We sign this loan agreement. I'll borrow $2,000 from you every month.
Eventually, I agreed to lend Margaret $2,000 monthly. The repayment date was set for a year later. However, Margaret, who only heard that a loan agreement would suffice, didn't know how to write one. Reluctantly, I looked up how to write a loan agreement on the internet. According to the information online, anyone can create a loan agreement. Moreover, as long as it's written correctly, it's legally valid no matter who made it.
Fees and a guarantor. What about interest?
Atrit was flustered. Apparently, she hadn't thought it through. Sighing, I asked, can I decide on the terms?
Can I decide on the terms? Just do whatever you want.
I got Margaret's consent, so I printed out the loan agreement and filled it in arbitrarily. Margaret, seeing the document, said, "There's fine print written there." So what does it say? It says I'll lend you $2,000 monthly.
It says, I'll lend you $2 monthly, and the repayment period is...
Trya explained the contents of the loan agreement in detail, but it was exactly as Margaret had directed. To avoid complaints later, I pointed to each section as I explained it to her. I reached for my wallet, but then I stopped. Daniel's face flashed in my mind.
I'm fine, I'll sign this. Now, give me the money quickly.
Okay, I understand. Can I transfer it instead? I'll send it to your account, Margaret.
Whatever, but I need it now. Can you go to the bank right now? No, I'll do the transfer online. It will also serve as proof that I lent you the money. Then, that's fine.
Facing fear at the cushions, I made the transfer from my computer right there. After I told Margaret I had transferred the money, she left happily. I would now have to give Margaret $2 every month. Alan was only thinking about his investments, and since he seemed to be spending a considerable amount on his investments, the amount of living expenses he gave me had decreased. But from the amount, it seemed like our household was investing over $400K monthly.
I have to protect myself now?
I resolved and started preparing for a day that might come. But contrary to my expectations, nothing happened. As usual, days passed with Margaret dumping housework on me. Alan, too, was absorbed in investing. and there was hardly any conversation between us as a couple.
I wonder if I should just get a divorce.
Takes a time. Do you want some information? While I was cleaning, Margaret rushed back home. She came straight to me and said, "Transfer some money for me."
I've already made this month's transfer. Just your 18.
There's a great stock opportunity. Give me a little more help.
But I've paid as per the loan agreement, and to increase it,
That's the loan agreement. That. It's been a year, let's make a new one.
Realized it only when Margaret mentioned it. It's been a year since the loan agreement was made. If it's still valid, Margaret has to start repaying from next month.
could this be a chance?
Just at that moment, my mind was made up, and I responded to Margaret with resolve. No, I can't give any more money or I won't be able to live myself.
A daughter-in-law should just quietly give money. That's her job.
So I shook my head and said, I can't. Margaret then yelled, if you don't like it, then leave. Divorce, divorce. I immediately went to my room while preparing to leave. I called Alan. While preparing to leave, I called Alan.
Margaret just told me to get a divorce. What do you think?
What happened? So,
We had a disagreement about investments.
investments? Mom's investing too?
Yes, and when I said something about it, I tried to explain, but Alan interrupted.
Alan seemed to be on Margaret's side. I then told Alan, I'm sorry. Good that you understand. No, I don't understand. So I'm getting a divorce. Are you serious? Are you serious? Goodbye. I hung up and went to get the divorce papers, signing them. That night, when Alan came home, I had him sign the divorce papers too.
Oh, so you won't be able to live after the divorce with what you make from remote work.
Alan said it like a parting shot. Needless to say, I had no regrets. After negotiations, Alan agreed to pay me compensation from Daniel's inheritance. Alan and I were officially divorced. I moved out immediately. Due to the circumstances of my new place, I stayed at Mary's house for a few days. But within a week, I had moved into my new apartment, starting my life alone.
Scarlett, where are you?
They're where? At home, my home. What's the matter?
Well, if you're at home, that's good. Come back immediately.
Tongue.
Vic said come back quickly. It's shameful for someone your age to still be living at her parents' house.
Margaret seemed to be misunderstanding something. I never said I was at my parents' house.
It's not my parents' house. It's my own house.
Phyllis, your own. What are you talking about? You can't rent a house without a job?
No, I've been working all along. Remember? Remote work?
You can't earn enough from remote work to rent a house. Stop lying and come back.
I wonder why she's saying this after making me pay her $2,000 every month. I retorted in disbelief. You told me to leave, and since we're divorced, I'm not coming back.
Then lend me some money.
Money?
Margaret explained that she had failed in her investments and was now short on living expenses. She couldn't even discuss it with Alan, leaving her in a bind.
Doesn't Alan have an income?
Uncle Alan doesn't contribute anything to living expenses.
I see. He mostly used it for investments when we were married too.
You know?
Of course. That's why I said I couldn't afford to give more than $200,000, or I wouldn't be able to live.
That much?
Margaret's voice trailed off. Apparently, she hadn't known. In reality, Margaret had used almost all of Daniel's inheritance for investments. Alan, too, had used nearly all his salary, in addition to Daniel's inheritance, for investing. In other words, our household was running on my remote work income. Despite that, Margaret assumed Alan was supporting her with his salary, and Alan thought Margaret was supporting him with her aid. I tried to tell both Margaret and Alan this, but they wouldn't listen.
So we were living on your earnings.
That's right. That's why we're struggling for living expenses since I left.
That's unbelievable.
Actually, it's surprising you managed for a few months without me.
That's because Alan borrowed from consumer finance companies.
So now you're turning to me because that's become difficult.
Yes, so please lend me some money, even just a little.
Then please return the money I lent you first. What? You remember the loan agreement, right?
When I said that, Margaret's voice started to shake.
That was, to save on gift tax.
But it's a valid loan agreement. Please return it.
It's impossible. Impossible. I don't have a single cent.
Then you'll have to sell the house. Huh.
I told her about the content written in the loan agreement. If she couldn't repay the debt, Margaret would have to sell the house Daniel bought and use the profits to pay me back. I had noted that in Hexacres the price for grants, the repayment method section. With my help, Margaret finally agreed to sell the house to me. I purchased the house where she and Alan were living, paid them the purchase costs, and had them return the $24 they owed me. However, they still had several $100,000 left from the sale, so I thought they would have no problem living on that. But of course, it was all intended as a way to repay Daniel. But things weren't that simple. The money from the house sale wasn't enough to pay off all their debts. Eventually, both of them declared bankruptcy. Bankruptcy doesn't necessarily lead to losing a job, so now they're somehow surviving on Alan's salary alone. They hope they've learned their lesson and will give up on investing. As for me, my home-based design company is doing well. I also started investing as Daniel taught me, and it's gradually making profits. And all of this is thanks to Daniel. Although my marriage to Alan was a failure, meeting Daniel was a significant gain in my life. So now I have no regrets.